Hi, it's Lisa from JuJu Crafts. This is video 2 of 3 on how to make your own resin embellishments for your mixed media projects. I'm no professional, just a chubby woman who sits around in her moo and loves to craft and give those crafts away to friends and relatives. So this is in no way a professional or a specific product type of spill. The first video was just showing you where I got some of my molds and showed some of the molds that I had made. Not necessarily the best ones, but just showing you how you can have some, you can make them. Some of them can turn out great, some of them turn out bad. But this video specifically is going to be on making your own molds. There's a lot of products out there, a lot. And I'm only going to show you a few because well, quite frankly, I've used up quite a bit of them. And the rest of it is some of them are more expensive than others, and I try to avoid those. And some of them are pretty inexpensive, like this one, $4.99 from Tuesday Morning. What I wanted to show you was basically there's two types of molding products you can buy. Now you can go on the internet and find many videos on how to make your own molds. Some people claim they make great molds out of hot glue. I tried it. I didn't find that it worked very good on high detailed items, and so that's not something I choose to do for myself. Some people seem to have great success with it. Some people make their own silicone molds using construction silicone. That just looked like a big mess to me, and I'm all for fast, easy, get it done. That's how I like to do things. And of course, if I was in a spot where I didn't have this kind of stuff available, I would probably try it. Let's start off with the putties. Putties are generally going to be 1-to-1 ratio, which means however much of one type you use is the same amount of the other type you use, and you smush it together and you make your mold. The problem with this kind of putty is that it does generally set up very fast, so you have to work fast. So we'll start off with this one. Now some people make their molds, as you can see on this box. Look at all those pretty molds, and they're nice and flat, and they're all perfectly round. Yeah, that's not so much what I get. I guess we're like the squished up version, smashed over the edges, maybe glitter in them from my past projects, but they work just fine, and they usually come out with great detail. Another thing you will see on mine is that because I use resin more than I use clay, most of these have a flat edge on them. I tend to make mine with a little bit of a raised edge because I don't do things perfect. I don't measure out stuff. Sometimes I over pour a little bit, and so I like to have that little lip on mine to catch that resin before it pours out on my table. If you've never had the joy of trying to clean up liquid resin, okay, I will warn you ahead of time. If you're sensitive, get you some gloves, some latex gloves, some non-latex gloves to work with the resins. I have literally resined my moo-moos, my gowns, my pajamas, because that's what I live in, to my underwear, and in turn, resined my underwear to my skin. It's not fun when you go to change your clothes and you realize you can't change clothes without ripping off part of your flesh. So do be careful when you're playing around with resin, and it can get warm. It doesn't really like burn, but it can get warm. Now let's look at the molds a little bit. Now that I've scared you, don't be scared, because it is super easy. That's the worst of it. That's really the worst of it, and that's if you're really messy like me and not paying attention. Usually I'm trying to pour it and watch something good on TV. So okay, so we have our putties. Here's some of the little gray putties. These are not the only 2 brands available. There are many brands. This one I got from Amazon. This one, like I said, I got from Tuesday Morning. There are a lot of putties out there that you can get. This one is the Melt Art from Ranger, and to be quite honest, it's pretty much the same putty as Susan Leonard Casmer's. Of course, now she has joined up with Ranger, which I'm so excited about. Go Susan. Love her artwork, love her jewelry. Okay. So this video is going to be a little choppy because I'm going to have to stop and start it a lot to show you how to make these molds out of this kind of putty and out of the liquid out of the liquid putties. Let's try that again. And out of the liquid mold makers as well. And there are several types of those. So I'm going to stop this video for a second so I can rearrange so you don't have to watch for all that. Okay, now the putties are going to come with 2 parts. One is your silicone and one's your catalyst. I don't know exactly what all that means, but basically you stick them together, they get hard. And that's all that matters. You're going to have 2 peat parts. Usually they come in 2 different colors. Like in this case, this is what was in this box. There are 2, this is a 1-pound box. So there's these 2 containers. One's purple, one's white. Whatever amount I use of the white, I have to use of the purple, and I have to work fast once I start getting them together. The thing is now you have to figure out, how do I get equal amounts of these two different parts to squish together? Well, there's two ways that I found that work for me. One is I actually have a kitchen scale. So I've got it on grams, and I can put the purple, 9 grams, and my white, that's 9 grams. Now, that way I know I have equal amounts. But what if you don't have a kitchen scale, which I didn't have when I first started making my molds, which was a pain in the butt because I was always worried. And sometimes if you get too big of one piece or too small of one piece, well, your mold isn't going to set up right. So I don't know how many of you did this as a kid. Do you remember this as a kid? Huh? You take your bread and you squishy, 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 squishy like this, and you make your little squares. Do you remember doing that as a kid and then you ate them? Remember doing that? I would eat that, but it's going to be covered in silicone. That's going to be sort of gross. And you made these little bread cubes. Most of us did that as children. If you didn't, practice on a piece of bread. It's going to be about the same. Okay? So make your little cubes. Try to get 2 cubes that are about the same size and just eyeball them out. These two I eyeballed out to where they're about the same size, about the same height, and about the same width. Now I have 2 cubes almost exactly the same. I did measure them after I eyed them out. They were almost exactly 9 grams apiece, so that worked out just perfect. Now, like I said, once you start using them, you have to work a little fast. I have to decide, what did I want to make a mold of? Well, since I don't want to waste my mold material even for a video, I have a friend named Castin who lives in Germany, who for one of our little friendship mail things, she sent me these great frozen charlottes from where she was at, and I am in love. And I don't know about you, but when I have something I love, I don't want to use it on my swaps, and I don't want to use it on my crafts. I want to keep them. They're my precious. Yeah. So anyway, whenever you're figuring out how much mold material to use, remember you're going to want some side around your item. So you want more mold material than you have an item. In this case, I'm going to use this little beauty. Isn't she cute? A little butt. Look at her little butt. But anyway, whenever you're making a mold out of putty, unless you want to make a 3D mold, which is a little bit more of a pain in the butt, you can do it, and there's not a problem to do it. It's just it is going to take more time to do a 3D mold where you stick it down in there and so the legs are sticking up, and then you have to cut the mold in half, and yeah, anyway, band it up. There are videos on how to make 3D molds out of putty and out of the silicone. I will let you find those on the internet. I'm just going to worry about using things for your mixed media projects, which means you're going to want generally a flat side, or you won't care if one side's flat because it's going to be on your project. In this case, I want the front of my little doll here to be molded. So what you do, since these, a lot of people just take it and smush it together, I find that that doesn't sometimes give you time before the molds to start setting up before you get your project, you get your little item in there, and so you don't end up with a good mold. So what I do, and like I said, you can do it however you want, but for me, I flatten out each color, until it's really thin. Okay, lay it down. Flatten out this color. And this is just what works for me. Now, what makes the mold set up faster is generally your temperature, your humidity, everything can affect that. How hot your hands are. Some of us have sweaty, grubby hands. Some of us have cold hands. That little bit of a temperature can make a huge difference. But either way, you're just going to have to work fast. So have everything ready. If you want neat molds, then you're going to need to find some containers to put your molds in. You know, like a little thing like this, or make your own little thing. I'll show you a little bit more on this when I do the liquid molds. But for me and the putty, I don't care. I just want my molds. I want them to last through several moldings, and I don't care if they're pretty or not. So then what I do is I lay them over top of each other, and then you have to work really fast. Smish, 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 smish. Pull, stretch, pull, stretch, pull, stretch. You do not stop and put in your piece until that putty is completely mixed in. You don't see any white, and you don't see any purple with white in it, till it is a nice solid color. Now everybody, like I said, everybody does these differently. Okay, I can already tell it's starting to firm up, so that means I'm going to have to act fast. So now I'm going to have to lay it out. Still see it needs a little bit more. Squish, 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 fast as you can. Okay, now I need to make it where I know my long part's going out. It's like a long piece. I'm going to hold it there between my fingers. I'm going to lay her down in there, and then I'm going to start pushing her gently Okay, like I said, on resin, I'm going to want it to go over the edges. So I'm going to push her and I'm going to start making my little edges up around my edges like that. Okay, if you can give it a little bit more edging, that's great. Do it. If it goes over her back a little bit, that's okay. That just means that's going to be more shape you get and less flat that you're going to get. Okay, there she is. She's all molded. See how fast that was? Now, it only takes about 10 minutes for this to get hard. Completely enough to where you can just use it to put in your resin. Now, I think the instructions say to let it set longer than that. I never have. I'm sure that at some point it will fail on me. But for right now, if I wait 10 minutes and pour my resin in there, I've got a little doll. So I'm going to let her sit there and gel for a second. And then we'll come back and I'll show you how to take it out. Okay, this has been sitting here for about 4 minutes, but I got some things ready because I wanted to show you something else. So as you can see, it's already hard enough for me to pick up. My fingers don't go in. It's actually probably almost ready enough where I could take it out if I was in a real big hurry. But I'm going to let it set just for a few more minutes while I show you this one. Okay, this, you've seen this was on the first video. This is a necklace that I had already made a mold of. The mold was very ugly, but my niece, who loves this kind of stuff like her aunt does with all the skulls and all the creepy stuff, I promised her that once I made the molds of this necklace that I wanted, I would give her this necklace. So she's been waiting patiently for about a year, maybe 2. So I'm going to do that right now. The reason I want to show you is do you see these? A lot of things we're going to want to mold are from jewelry, or they're charms, or they're dangles. And they have these little clasps on them. I want you to know, don't worry about those. Just put that in your mold too. Resin is, well, it's not concrete. So once you get your resin mold out that you've made, you can just clip those little pieces off if they're still stuck on there. Or if it's a shallow mold, you don't even have to pour the resin over that part. One of the things I've done with the other mold of this I made was I literally clipped out parts of the heart once I got the resin molded. Like this, I'll show you. This is from the other mold I made of this. You can see where I clipped out the heart edges. So I could have just a skull heart, or a heart made of skulls. And of course this one's painted and goopied up from my Halloween projects. And if you can get in there and see it real good, I'm not too, yeah, there we go. So you can see how I've just clipped out the heart parts. This is just resin that I made out of a mold out of this. I'm going to show you how I did this one, because I did it just a little different. Because this has sort of an odd shape. It's raised up in the center, it's slanted in. So a lot of times if you're not careful, if you have a really odd shaped piece, and you go to put it in your putty, and you start pushing down on it, what it's going to do is it's going to give you a good imprint right here, and then it's going to start to smear a little bit. So if you have something that has a curve to it, you need to put your putty around it and press in instead of pushing it into the mold, into the putty. So I've already measured this out, just like I did on the other ones, flattened out both of them, and I'm going to do what I did before. This is about as big of a putty mold as I would make if I was you. I've made bigger ones, but a lot of times I've messed up a lot of my putty trying to make bigger ones just because it's really hard to get it smushed and molded, and do that in time to get a great image and to get a good impression without the mold putty starting to harden up on you. So like I said, maybe 2 to 3 inches. Like I said, I've made bigger ones, but they didn't turn out as good as they could have when they're smaller. The bigger pieces used a liquid mold products. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Now, lay it out, roll it up a little bit tighter here, flatten it out a little bit. My hand. Now I still need to make sure I have I have enough between me and the mold so it's still got a good base on it. I'm going to start pressing around it, trying to be fast, but trying to be, see how I'm starting to get a lot on one side. I'll start trying to scoot that over there to the other edge because I'm getting too much on one side. Like I said, my molds are not pretty, but they do work, and they give me a pretty good form. Now when you're pouring resin, one thing you need to remember is your resin is liquid, so you're going to need a little bit of a flat base to hold it on, so just barely push down to give it a little flat bottom there. Start making your lip. If you want a lip, some people don't want a lip, I want a lip. I like to have that little lip there to help me to keep from my resin from pouring all over my table, which it still does sometimes, but not quite as much. So I pressed it around, and I'm just gently squishing it up there. Now I'm starting to feel the putty starting to give me some resistance because it's already starting to harden up. There we go. I might give it a little teeny press just to make sure I've got my skulls impressed in there pretty good. And there we go. How easy is that? I'm sorry about my lighting. Where I sit is in a basement. There are no natural window lights, and so I just use lamps, and I don't have any really good lamps. So hopefully you can still see what's going on. Alright, so this little guy's all ready. One thing that you can do to check to make sure it's fully ready is, have you ever boiled eggs? And I'm not talking about soft boiled, hard boiled eggs. This feels just almost identical to the white on hard boiled eggs. You know, that where it's sort of like a rubber? That's what this sort of feels like. What I do on all my molds is I gently just start to pry it just a little bit to get it loosened up, just to make sure, because you can still tear these molds. And if they tear, you just got to repair them, or you throw them away and use them for something else. One of the things I have used pieces of molds that tore up in is I put them in corners of other molds that, you know, didn't have the pieces in where I was going to pour, and this sort of filled it in. So there we go. Now just start raising it up, pushing it up a little bit from the bottom, pushing this up a little bit from the bottom. There it comes. Pop it right out there, and looky there, little mold of my little Charlotte. Oh yeah. And then we will put resin in this a little bit later. I'll show you a little bit more on the liquid molds and show you this one that we're finishing. And hopefully this video won't take too long, but I just want to show you how to use the other stuff as well. Now again, this is just the putty, and it's usually 1-to-1. Always read the instructions on whichever kind of putty you get, just in case you find one that has a different, like if it's a 1-to-3 ratio, then you're going to have one part one color and 3 parts the other color. I have not seen that for just basic crafters like us, but I'm sure that exists in the crafting world and in the hobby world. I like simple. I go for simple 1-to-1 putty. Silicone putty, easy mold to me so far has been the cheapest. This is great if you just need a little bit of putty. If you're not going to be making, like I am not going to show you because I'm embarrassed. I have this monster drawer that I have bags and bags and bags of molds in. I've actually had to separate them, some nautical, some steampunk, some Halloween, just so I can find them. That's how bad it's getting. So, but if you're just going to make a few little things, just get some of the little bitty pieces like this. Like this is, see if it tells me how much. I'm blind, can't see. This is just 2 ounces, it looks like. Oh, 1.5, 1.5 ounces, so 3 ounces total of putty. So that's about what 3 ounces of putty mix gets you, 1.5 of each kind. So you're going to have to mix them together. This is a pound of putty. If I would have bought this at full price in a craft store, it would have been about $12 to $13. Okay, like I said, this was at Tuesday morning, and I love Tuesday morning for when you get to their crafts. This I got from Amazon, and I will have to look up that price to you, and I'll get back to you after I stop it and get back in here with the liquid stuff. Be right back again. Alright, like I said, I hope there's not too many choppy parts in this video because I'm starting and stopping so many times. Okay, this one has set up, and let's just see what it looks like when I get it out. Start pulling around the edges like I did on the other ones, just make sure the edges are all loose, which they normally will be. I've never really had any problems, but it's always good to do that. Tilt it, grab it, pull it up. Nope, looky there. Perfect. Lots of little skull prints. Ready for my Halloween and Gothic crafting. Alright, squirrel, you get your necklace. I'll put it back together and ship it off to you. My nieces, all of them. I have, I think, like 27, 28 nieces and nephews, and they're all just these magnificent, beautiful children. Of course, now some of them are in their 20s, but it's just crazy to me just how blessed this family has been with children. Those two, I called her Squirrel. Her real name is Allie. Her and her sister, absolutely beautiful girls. Being the aunt I am, I have to name them Moose and Squirrel instead of Allie and Amber. But, of course, named the little scrawny one Moose. Sorry, Amber. She's gorgeous, though. They both are. But I will be getting you your necklace soon. And I might even send you some molds. Just to show you some of the fun stuff you can do. See? Look at that. Isn't that great? Love it. That's a mold. That's just resin. Just wanted to give you a little insight so you can get all inspired and get out there and make some stuff. Alright, now for the liquid molds. Liquid molds will give you more detail. I don't care what anybody says. I've tried all different kinds and even have molded the exact items from putty and from liquid. The problem with liquid is pain in the butt, in my opinion. Mostly because it's sticky and icky and gooey, and you have to have containers you're ready to throw away with the course, with the putty, you can see you don't have any containers unless you just want to. And even then, the silicone will just pull right out. With the liquid putty, it's going to come in containers as well, 2 containers, and you're going to have liquid and liquid, and it's sticky, icky stuff. So to start off with, here's some liquid molds that I've made. Okay, they are not near as pretty as the ones that you're going to buy that have been made by professionals or people who make them in bulk, mostly because, like I said, I like to do things fast and easy, but you can make them look good. Martha Stewart was the first liquid putty that I used. I've probably gone through 10 or 12 boxes of this stuff before I even tried other ones, mostly because I was too afraid to. I'd found some Martha Stewart liquid mold maker in her jewelry section. I think it's in Michael's, is where she usually has her jewelry section. And you can see she has little itty bitty containers, which are, I always call them medicine containers, but they're these little cups. This one's all abused, but you know, the kinds that have measurements on them. And you can even use that to put your putty in if you have like a little bitty one, and just squish it down in there to make a little bitty one, and then you have a nice pretty little round mold. But you can use this putty, this mold material for larger molds as well. I will be quite frank and quite honest. I love Martha stuff, but I have had more problems with the liquid putty in hers than I have any other brand I've tried. Hers is a little different. Hers is not 101. Hers, there are two bottles. One is the silicone, and one is the catalyst. This is not 101. So you have to use so many drops and teaspoons of this to this. I had a problem measuring it. I could do it, and it ended up just fine. Also, the product that I ended up with, to me, it was a great product, and I still have every single mold of hers that set up right, but there were a few that didn't set up right, probably because I missed a drop or whatever, and this one did. This one set up right. This was a cabochon. I think I showed you in video 1, there was a Lolita that I had put on a gravestone in a book. This was the cabochon mold that I made using Martha Stewart. Now this would have been a perfect round great mold, except you can see how I got roughed up edges here. The reason for that is whenever you're using the liquid medium, you have to glue your item down face up generally. That's the general idea. And there's other ways to do it, don't get me wrong. You'll like hot glue it down into your container, and then you're going to pour this mold medium that you've mixed together over top of it. It takes hours, generally overnight, to set. And so that is another thing, is that you're not going to get a fast mold, but you will get extremely great details. You can see how well detailed that is. They're fabulous. But where I glued my cabochon down, I was always afraid of messing up the edges or whatever, so I glued inside the cabochon, so a little bit of the silicone ran underneath the bottom. So this would literally be like if this was in the bottom of a container. Say if this was the container I made mine in, I would have glued my cabochon to the bottom, and then I would have poured the medium over it. So when I pulled it out, it looked just like this. And again, just like egg white. That's exactly what that feels like. Sort of rubbery like an egg white that's hard. Then when you pop it over, there's your mold. You take out your mold just like you did in a putty, and in this case you can see where it had run under it, and I just took my scissors and just clipped it out. Could have done it neater, but like I said, I'm not a perfectionist. Some people are. If you're a perfectionist, you just spend all the time you want to making your molds pretty. Yeah, I don't care. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is show you a few. So this is Martha Stewart's mold. This is a color it's going to come out. There are different putties, different mold materials that are made out of the liquid silicone on the market. You can get different colors. This one turned out a great mold. It actually even looks good. Of course, I dried it a little bit, so it's a little ski-wampusy. This one's a little thinner up here, but it works perfect. This one is really thick, and it's really sturdy, and it's probably going to last me a long time. But the items I made in here are just great. I love them. This, again, is the Martha Stewart. I have probably used this mold, my guess, is 70 times. And it's no worse for wear. It was just a flat back. No, take it back. This was a frozen Charlotte doll. And what I did was, because you couldn't just glue a frozen Charlotte doll because the little butt and everything is all ski-wampusy and going up and down, you can't glue that to a bottom. So what I did was I used a container, filled it full of my silicone, and then I suspended halfway in the frozen Charlotte, which I had taped to a ruler on the sides, and I just suspended it down to the face level. And then that way I have my little frozen Charlotte. This is a clay piece that I had. This is a different a different silicone mix as well. You can see they come in different colors, and that all depends on the manufacturer. And so one of the products we're going to be using in this video is going to be this color. And then I'm not going to use the Martha Stewart just because I only have a little bit left, but at least I will make one and show you how to do it because they all work about the same. What I'm going to cover right now though is what containers can you make your molds in, because that is hard for a lot of people, especially when you don't have professional products. I don't have professional products. That's why, as the craft hoarders that we are, ladies, all those containers that you have been saving are going to come in handy. All right, first of all, I have kitties. I've rescued many kitties. I go through a box of these twice a month. Dun, 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 dun. Oh, do you see? Look at here, look at here. Now, what I've done is I take mine, of course, wash them out, dry them out, go out, and then you can use different sections for different size molds. You will see that this would actually fit very well, probably just about right in here. So you can see that's where I cut this one off at. What I do is I cut it down when I'm getting ready to make my mold, and I will just put it on a piece of chipboard or piece of cardboard. And then I usually try to line it with some wax paper. There's all you need for your container. If you don't have cat temptations, you know, look at, here's a bottle of an alcohol bottle. This is just where we finished off using a first aid bottle. I use alcohol a lot for my alcohol inks and that sort of thing, and to make my own alcohol inks. So I just cut off the bottom. There's me a mold box. Hey, snack packs. Jello snack packs. There we go. Got that one. This, I'm not even sure. I think this was like one of those things when you're much a hoarder I am, in Walmart, you know, where they give you like, here, would you like to taste this? Like, no, but I want that cup. So, you know, you taste it, get your cup, put it in your pocketbook. There you go. Got another mold container. So many fun things. Now, what do you do if you don't have any mold containers? Well, don't forget, don't throw away everything. Let me show you this one first. Recognize this? Yeah. This is the one of the empty, yeah, if I can get out here, one of the empty ones of these. This was one of my mold putties. So I saved these. These are great containers, by the way. You don't have to just use them for, you can use these for anything. They're great. You can use these for storage containers. They're very well made. But you can also just cut it down and use it to make a mold in when you're done. Now let's say you don't have any containers, or maybe you don't have a container that's the right size to hold yours. One of the things you need to look for a container is it really has to be flat on the bottom. Sadly, a lot of the containers are going to have like little poofy parts or parts that are raised. You end up wasting a lot of mold material when parts are raised in the bottom. So what do you do if you need to make your own? Well, we all have pieces of chipboard laying around or a cardboard box, right? And you can make it with just the cardboard, but sometimes it gets a little sticky because it's going to, like, you know, it is liquid, and it might tear off a little bit of cardboard, get it stuck in your silicone. What I found works best is just to get a piece of wax paper just off the roll. Now this I've already glued. These, I'm just going to show you real quick how I would make a mold container if I didn't have all these great piece of plastic ones. So the only thing I've done was, these are just scrap pieces of chipboard that I had left over from craft projects. And I don't know if you guys do, but I do. I just stuff them in a little box on the side. That way if I ever need to die cut out a piece or whatever. So in this case, I'm going to make, see if I'm going to make a mold. I just hot glued these little pieces on, stuck them together, reinforced them with a little bit of tape, and just like this. Hit me. I got my hair in hot glue. Okay, that's not a surprise. I've also drank paint water. Yeah, I'm one of those people. Don't pay attention when I do anything. Now, my glue gun looks horrible. That's because it is. These big things are magnets. I pulled these off of something. I don't remember, but I glued them on my hot glue gun. And the side of my table is metal, so I just stick it on my table when I'm ready for it. So I just run the hot glue down. It doesn't have to be neat because you're just going to throw it away when you're done with your mold anyway. Just stick it on there. That's actually my hair where I hot glued it. That's gross. Sorry. Oh well, that's the truth of crafting, isn't it, ladies? Like I said, I have drank the paint water. My nieces were here. They thought it was hilarious. Actually, so did I. Okay, now you can run hot glue up the sides here if you want to once it gets stuck. Or you can just, where'd I put my tape? Oh, yeah, I thought I was halfway prepared. So, then I just tape the edges. Like I said, nothing's spiky. I'm going to throw it away when it's done anyway, right? Don't worry about prettiness. That's why I'm not trimming it down to make it even, because it doesn't matter. Now, if I wanted to, I could go one, if I have a difficult piece to work with that's going to be a little bit hard for me to glue in, I could leave off an end so I'd have an open area to start working in to put in my piece. And then once I get this, I'm just going to take a piece of wax paper that is bigger than the bottom, and however far, if I want it to go on the sides, how far up I think I'm going to pour it. If I go over it, who cares? It's going to be fine. Fold it down. That's going to be my side. It's going to go up to this side. And then I'm going to fold over one edge here. Okay, now that's going to fit right in there, right? Yeah. Okay, then I can just sort of guess, push it down here and see, okay, it's going to need to fold right there. Fold this over, get my little crease lines in there. Okay, there we go. It's pretty close anyway. If it's not perfect, I'll make it work. I'm going to put it in there like this. Hopefully you can see. Like I said, I don't have the best filming arrangements. All right, get it in there. You can do it. Okay. Now fold that little piece down like that. And see, now I've got it all smashed in there, right? Yeah, I'm not going to leave it that way. Then I just start raising up the edges. So I might put a little piece of tape here to help hold this one. And then I'm just going to do that all the way around. And I have made my own custom mold container for the liquid silicone mold making material. Okay, if it's not exactly perfect, that's okay, because your mold doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be functional, and it has to last for several molds. So, and then of course I'm just going to work it around where, you know, it's as flat as I can get it. That is exactly how I made this mold. I didn't have a container at that time when I wanted to make it, and so I just made one out of cardboard. And now I have one for my little mold piece that I love so much. Okay, now let's talk about the items you mold. Can you mold porous materials? No, I would not recommend it. It's going to get saturated with the silicone. Silicone's going to tear off pieces in it. It's going to be horrible. You need pieces that you're going to mold need to be hard. They need to be metal. They need to be baked clay. You know, just something hard, glass. Anything that's not going to absorb the silicone. You know, in this case, the piece here that I molded inside this one was a very lovely face, but it was clay. Now, clay can be porous. Most clays will work after it's baked just fine. But if you do have some acrylic sealer, spray it on that and let it dry first, just to be safe. Okay, so setting up to make a mold from the liquid silicone. And, you know, just showing you again, this was my Temptations little containers that I save, and I usually cut them apart in 3 segments, and then on the 2 that won't have a bottom, I will end up just slicing them off and putting them on a piece of cardboard or something like that, and, you know, gluing them down or holding them down. That way I'll have 2 more mold pieces for those. So on this one, I'm going to actually use the bottom piece, and I've already put a couple items in there. What I've done is I've hot glued them down. This great little camera piece, one of my friends, Ex Montano, sent to me in one of our little swaps, and I thought it was so cute. I want a mold of it so I can use it in some other projects. I also had this little teeny tiny little filigree. I don't even know where it came from, but it's a little 3D filigree, so I would like to make as much use of my mold material as I can. I don't want to get things too close, or you'll end up tearing your molds when you start trying to pull things out and, you know, move them around and things. So if you want your molds to last longer, have at least 1/4 inch, preferably even 3/8 of an inch. On some of my other ones, I've even put a 1/2 of an inch. If it's a mold that I know I'm going to want to keep for a long time, I will spend the money for that little extra mold material, so that I have that option of making it last a little better. Now, as you can see, I still got some space over here. I don't have to use that. I could have put this right in the center and had a nice bigger mold with just 1 piece in it, which I have done. But I just wanted to show you. This is one of those little buttons. A lot of ladies have probably seen these. We get them in, they're in those little $1.99 packets like at Joann's. Little plastic nothings. This was in the Victorian or the vintage set of buttons. And, you know, of course it has this little button thing, so I can't glue it flat. Now, if I don't mind cutting off my little thing, I'll just use either a pair of Tim Holtz tonic scissors, which I love for everything. I use, you know, to cut this off actually around here. If you don't know if you've noticed, but Tim Holtz has even used his on his ribs in his kitchen. Those are the best pair of scissors ever, at least in my opinion. And I dropped my wire cutters, so I had to reach down and grab them. So what I'll do is I'll just cut the little button shank part off. I know there's a real word for it. I'll just call it a button shank. Throw it away. you know, if I can get the rest of it off, that's great. If I can't, that's okay too. And then I'm just going to try to guess where I'm going to put this, where I still have plenty of room between it and my edges and between the little camera piece. So right there looks about good. Sometimes I've put things in there, they've fallen too close and I've had to take them out, scrape off the glue and start over. So what I'll do is I'll just go around like that. Yeah, just like that. I'll go around the edges, get as much glue around the edges as I can, because I don't, it'll try to keep that silicone from staying there, and then try to work fast enough to where the glue doesn't dry. No, see, too close to the edge. So if I can slide it up, I will. If it'll still stay, we're getting business. But if not, no, we're not good. So you can see how things fail miserably. No glue left in there. Got glue here. Just scrape it off and start over. See, this shows you. You will fail at things, but you can fix them. Just start over. Probably a great little piece of advice for life. If you failed once, just keep trying. Well, until you just don't want to try more. Then go find something else more fun to do. Alright. I have some neuropathy in my hands, so I don't hold on to things very easily. Drop a lot of bowls of spaghetti, that's for sure. Okay, so here we go. Keeping it hot and real stick good. Try to keep a little bigger grip on it. Yeah, try to put it in there a little bit better. Yeah, there we go. Smush it down in there. Now you want to let, like if I had my silicone all mixed up already, always make sure your hot glue is completely dry before you start pouring the silicone material over it. When I mix my silicone material, just like with the putty, I'm going to have equal amounts of both colors. I'm going to mix them together in a container. When it comes to mixing them, always use something that's disposable, because that stuff is nasty and sticky, and you will probably throw away the containers, unless you're just really super good at stuff like that. I'm not. I generally just get the wooden sticks, popsicle sticks from Walmart. There are two types of sticks. These I got by accident. These are the type where you can put other sticks in and build with. I thought, oh, well, no big deal. You know what? It is a big deal, especially when you're mixing up your resin. It can really be a pain in the buttugers to get, is that a word? Yeah. To get it all mixed up better. Get these if you can. They're a lot easier. If you don't have these around, just get, you know, plastic spoon, just anything disposable to mix it up with. Okay, so I've got me some cups ready, and this is the product I'm going to be using right now to show you how this works. This is Smooth On. This is their liquid rubber. It doesn't actually say silicone on it, except for on the label, and it says Tin-Cure Silicone Rubber. And I'll just get that up there so you can see. This is the OOMOO30. The Smooth On makes a ton of different kinds of mold making materials and casting materials and resins, and some of them are made for like boats and some for these great big projects. This is the one that I use to make just basic molds for me for a crafter. So if you want to write that one, now I get mine from Amazon because I have Amazon Prime, which I adore. Then that way everything comes to my house within 2 days and it's free shipping. I wouldn't really call it free since you're paying for the Amazon Prime, but it still is cheaper than if I had to run it down all over town. One of the things about the Smooth On is that it does say to stir each container well before using. Okay, it does give you a temperature to try to keep it at. I have used these specific containers have probably been open for about maybe 2 months. You can tell it's still great, it's in good shape. You can see what I mean by it being sticky and icky. So, and you're not going to get that off your container, off your item. So make sure you're using something disposable. I do not know how much it will take to fill this up. I am not a precise person. I refuse to spend the time to fill my little containers with rice and pour it over it and clean all my items and all this stuff. If you want to do that, go right ahead. I'm all for, if there's not enough, I'll mix more, and if there's too much, I'll just have a really big mold. Either that or I'll make 2 molds from it. This does not set up super fast, so you will have some working time. On the stir well, there is, if it's been sitting for a while, it will have separated a little bit. I think you can still see a little bit off to the side here. You can see where it's like got a little bit more liquidy look to it. I have been known in acts of impatience to just shake the containers, which I'm sure anybody who does modeling and all these great things would tell you never do that, you'll get air bubbles, which is true. So unless you're super impatient like me, don't do that. I did go for the rubber gloves this time just because I've had some bad experiences with it. If you're a rubber glove person and you don't want to deal with cleaning up the mess, get you a huge box. You're going to start, I can't get it in there, it's too heavy, there's too much stuff. Okay, but just get you a box of rubber gloves. I got these at Walgreens, box 200. There was a coupon in the Walgreens thing. Ended up getting a box of 200 gloves for $5. They're usually over where the diabetic medications and that sort of thing are, where people give themselves injections. And so, or you can just buy a couple, you know, use your household cleaning gloves. Now, I don't have a stick big enough to reach down into the bottom, which I should, but I don't. Okay. Now, I'm going to end up throwing these sticks away just because I don't want to take a chance on just getting it dribbled all over. If I can get it over here, or getting it on my cat. Okay, now like I said, I'm not a measurer. So what I'm going to do is I just got 2 containers. I'm just going to fill both containers equally full, and then I'm just going to use this to mix them with. I was going to look for a plastic, you know, red Solo cup, but yeah, couldn't find one. So I'm just going to use one of my other containers I'd saved. So I'm going to start with that one about right there. It's almost like Pepto-Bismol, and it's some kind of nightmare, doesn't it? Blue version. Probably should have wiped that off before I did it. Okay, now here you can see what this one looks like when I first take off the lid. Probably should be more careful so I don't knock it over, because that would be one nasty mess. That stuff is really, really thick. Okay, that one's pretty and pink, and that's why this one makes the purple mold, because pink and blue makes a light purple. This one's not so separated as the blue. So it's actually still pretty good, so I'm not even going to worry about it. It looks fine to me. It doesn't look separated much, probably is, but it's not. So I'm just going to pour about as much as I have in the other one, and I'll just check it out to see if I've got about the same amount. Close enough. Ew, this is why the gloves are great, so you can just do that. Ew, ew, okay. Put the lids back on, because you definitely don't want to spill that. I have such a small working space. Now, it's not because I don't have enough space. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tables to work on. Yeah, they're all pod full of stuff. I'm a crafter. That's what we do. Anybody who says differently, well, you're just neater than me, or, well, you're lying and you're taking pictures only when your room's clean. I feel about it. At least I hope that's what you're doing, because I don't want to be the only nasty crafter in the world that's messy all the time. So I'm just going to pour my 2 containers, which are almost the same, into each one. Like I said, this might be more mold material than I need. If it is, I'm just going to have one heavy-duty mold. And if it's not enough where it doesn't set well, I will be able to make more and pour it on top before it settles. But looking at what it is right now, it looks like that's going to be just about the right amount once I got 2 of them. You do want them to be a little bit thick. I mean, come on, sit there. You know, sturdier molds if you're going to make them last. If you're going to spend this much time and money on a mold, make sure it's something that you want. The worst thing I've had happen with making these liquid molds is that for whatever reason, the liquid mold silicone doesn't set up. So you're stuck with this sticky, icky, gooey globs of stuff that you have to try to get off of your originals and clean your originals. That's about as bad as it gets. It is possible, you can do it, it's just a little bit of icky, gooey stuff. And, you know, there's some things that you shouldn't mix with other things, like, you know, just like you wouldn't want to mix bleach and ammonia together. You just have to be careful. But I've had no problems at all just wiping it up with some alcohol cloths and stuff like that. It just takes a while. Another thing is that, you know, you saw how I used the hot glue to stick down my items into the bottom of the container. I have seen on videos, and I've had people tell me, if you don't want to use hot glue, use clay. So I tried that once, and it was horrible. It was a horrible, horrible mess. I put clay on the bottom of my items, and I poured my mold material, just like I'm making right now, on top of it. I waited one day. It had not set. But it had started to look a little hard, so I thought there was hope for it. Day 2, it still had not set. And what I noticed is that it wasn't setting from the bottom. All the edges that didn't touch the pieces had set. And after I waited for about a week, I hit it with some sunlight, I did everything I knew to try to get it to do. Whatever was in the clay that I used must have had some reaction with the silicone, and it would not allow that silicone to harden. And so that was just not a salvageable mold. But it was all the fault of the clay. All the silicone that was not touching the pieces hardened just right. You can see that's starting to get all purpley already. See? And I just want to keep mixing it until it's completely purple. It's an ugly purple, sort of a muddy purple. but it dries sort of pretty. I'm going to pause the video now because I want to keep working this until I make sure it's 100% mixed. Alright, so I've got most of it. As far as I can tell, I've tilted it and made sure there's no pinks, made sure there's no blues. I've scraped the bottom. My hand's actually sore because I've stirred it for quite some time. Now, if you can see, you can look onto the side, you'll see that there's little bubbles. That's your enemy. Those are your enemies. I'm telling you right now, they're your enemies. If an air bubble gets trapped between your pieces and your silicone, you're going to end up with that air bubble there, and it's going to mess up your mold, and you're not going to be a happy camper. Trust me, I still use them most of the time. I just add a rhinestone or something else to that piece. Very seldom will I throw away a complete mold, or I'll reuse it as part of a mold. Like right now, if I had some extra mold pieces that was made out of a similar putty, a similar silicone mass, if it was hard, I would lay it right there. And then I would just pour over it, and it would actually just wrap itself around it. Yeah, I wouldn't put it on top of my piece by any means, but in an empty spot, yeah, I wouldn't have any problems. Now, when you go to pour the silicone in, you want to find an empty corner. What you're going to do is you don't want to just pour it on top of your items. You want to let it sort of, see, look at all those bubbles raising up. Oh, they're the enemies of the kingdom. Some people might even start doing this a little bit to try to get some of the air bubbles out of the bottom. I do that afterward, but you can. So you can see more bubbles even raising up now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slowly start pouring it off to the side, and I'm just going to let it slowly go over my pieces. Just slowly and happily so it can creep like the blob. So it can creep like the blob over it. There it goes. Oozing and taking over everything. See if this light helps over here, if it blinds you. Yeah, it's blinding, but it might be okay. Like I said, if I end up not having enough mold material, I'll just make more and pour over it because this will still be liquid. But it looks like it's going to be enough. You would like to have at least 1/4 of an inch of mold material over your items. At least 1/4 of an inch. I'm left-handed, so I'm sorry if I'm blocking out the view here. Let me try moving my hand over. See how it's going over top. Yeah, this will probably be just the right amount of mold material, maybe even a little extra, but that's all right. I'd rather have a thicker mold when it comes to this stuff than a too thin one that's going to mess up. Now, whenever you put this mold material up to dry, put it somewhere where dust isn't going to fall in it, where hairs from your pets, your kids' fingers, doors opening, wind blowing, those kind of things are not going to bother it. I used to have a drawer that I would literally just put things in. A drawer I could open and close. It was a large drawer. I don't have that now. So now I take them to a back room that nobody ever goes in, and I just let it sit there. Some people say it's okay to cover it loosely if you want to, so I don't. I just leave mine out. And there we go. I'm just going to put the rest of it in there, even though it's probably fine if I didn't, because it looks like there's plenty over top. But now, if I wanted to really save this container, I could probably just set it aside and let it dry as well, and then just pull out this silicone. Since it's plastic, it'd probably come off really easy. But it's not that important to me since it's just the bottom of an alcohol container. Rubbing alcohol. Found out they don't call it rubbing alcohol in England. It's like, I don't know, first aid something or other, or sterile something or other. I can't remember now, but it was something I had no idea because I was trying to tell a lady how to make her own spritzes and sprays out of alcohol and pigment because then it dries faster. But anyway, so yep, that icky mess. So it's going in the trash. Okay, now you can see. I'm going to turn it sideways really quick so you can see just how deep it is. See? Okay. I don't want to leave it up there too long because then it'll start sticking. But you can see I'm starting to get some bubbles on the top, and that's normal. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hold it like an inch, and I'm just going to start doing this. Why am I doing that? 2 reasons. One, to get the putty that hasn't gone around all of the details, start doing that. Also to start working some of those air bubbles more up to get rid of them. You don't necessarily have to pop them. They'll pop on their own, or the ones on the top are no big problem. Those aren't going to hurt anything because this is going to be the bottom of your mold when you're done. So I'm just going to keep pounding and pounding for probably about, oh, I don't know, another 2 or 3 minutes. Like I said, the putties are a lot easier than the liquids, but the liquids will give you, I would actually say, a more sturdy mold, and they will give you a more detailed mold. Even though the little putty does really good, the liquid silicone to me does better. So I will stop here, and we will start with video number 3, where we start molding with the resins. We'll talk about a couple different types of resins, how to mold them, some problems you might have with them, and how you can color them if you don't have resin pigment. I don't have a whole lot of that information, but I have some, and I will show you what I've done in the past and what to do if a piece doesn't quite turn out right. One of the things that I was going to show you, and I forgot, was, let's say you have a mold, and your mold has, whether it's putty or this liquid, maybe it's sort of torn. You want to try to salvage it, and sometimes you can. Probably half the time, if not more, you can. And what I've done is I've mixed up a little bit of this liquid. I will open up, like say if it tore here, and I would just put just some drips of this liquid in there, and I would hold it together and put a rubber band around it. And when that, and I'll make sure some of it goes over the top as well and on the bottom, so it's not going to be so pretty, but at least my mold is salvaged. So if you tear up one and it's not too badly torn, and you're just going to use it for mixed media projects, you don't mind if it's not 100%, you know, perfection, you're not using it for jewelry or whatever, you can probably salvage that mold for yourself. So anyway, that's the end of video number 2, and we'll start with video number 3 on actually making the molds. Hope you come back and see that one.